Case 1. Lori Vallow Daybell. September through October 2019. Fremont County and Madison County, Idaho. There are criminal cases that a state's judicial system processes quietly, efficiently, and without much notice from the world outside the courthouse walls. And then there are cases like this one. The case of Lori Vallow Daybell is documented in the court records of Fremont County and Madison County, Idaho. It has been reported on by NBC News, CNN, ABC News, NPR, East Idaho News, and the Associated Press. It was the subject of a Netflix documentary series. It produced 3 consecutive sentences of life without the possibility of parole and resulted in a separate death sentence for the co-defendant. It is, by any honest measure of judicial weight and public significance, among the most consequential criminal cases ever prosecuted within the borders of the state of Idaho. Lori Vallow Daybell was a resident of Rexburg, Madison County, Idaho at the time of the events that formed the basis of the criminal charges against her. She was the mother of Tylee Ryan, who was 16 years of age at the time of her disappearance in September of 2019, and the adoptive mother of Joshua Jackson Vallow, known publicly as J.J. Vallow, who was 7 years of age at the time of his disappearance in late September of 2019. Her husband was Chad Daybell, a resident of Salem, Fremont County, Idaho. Tammy Daybell was Chad Daybell's wife prior to his marriage to Lori Vallow. She died in October of 2019. Her death was initially attributed to natural causes. Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow were married in November of 2019, within weeks of Tammy Daybell's death. The disappearance of Tylee Ryan and J.J. Vallow did not immediately generate a formal criminal investigation. It was not until law enforcement in Rexburg, Madison County, began receiving inquiries from extended family members concerned about the welfare and whereabouts of the 2 children that an active inquiry was initiated. The Rexburg Police Department, working in coordination with the Madison County Sheriff's Office and with the assistance of federal law enforcement agencies, opened a formal investigation into the disappearance of both children. Investigators made contact with Lori Vallow Daybell and Chad Daybell during the course of the investigation. Law enforcement conducted multiple interviews and attempted to verify the location and welfare of both children. According to the documented investigative record, the responses provided by both individuals to investigators' inquiries were inconsistent with verifiable information. The investigation expanded in scope. Search warrants were obtained. The case drew increasing national and international media attention as it became clear that 2 children had been missing for a significant period of time and that law enforcement had been unable to account for their whereabouts. In June of 2020, investigators conducting an authorized search of the property at Chad Daybell's residence in Salem, Fremont County, Idaho made the discovery that transformed the investigation entirely. The remains of 2 individuals were recovered from the property. Forensic examination was conducted. The examination confirmed the identity of those remains as Tylee Ryan and J.J. Vallow. The missing persons investigation became a homicide investigation. Lori Vallow Daybell had been arrested in February of 2020 in the state of Hawaii on charges connected to the investigation. Following the June 2020 discovery of the remains in Fremont County, the criminal charges were substantially expanded. She was charged in both Fremont County and Madison County with first-degree murder in connection with the deaths of Tylee Ryan and J.J. Vallow. The charges did not end there. Following the exhumation of Tammy Daybell's remains and a subsequent forensic examination that produced findings inconsistent with the original determination of natural causes, an additional charge was filed. Lori Vallow Daybell was charged with conspiracy to commit first-degree murder in connection with the death of Tammy Daybell. She was also charged with grand theft. The case that followed involved multiple years of preliminary hearings, evidentiary motions, competency proceedings, and legal preparation before it reached trial. A competency evaluation conducted during the proceedings resulted in a finding that Lori Vallow Daybell was not competent to stand trial at that stage. She was committed to a court-ordered treatment facility for a period of evaluation and restoration. A subsequent competency evaluation produced a finding that she was competent to proceed. The case moved forward. The trial of Lori Vallow Daybell took place in the 7th Judicial District in 2023. The prosecution presented extensive evidence to the jury. That evidence included forensic findings from the examination of the recovered remains, electronic communications evidence recovered during the investigation, testimony from law enforcement investigators and forensic expert witnesses, and documentary evidence establishing the detailed timeline of events from September of 2019 through the period of the investigation and arrest. In May of 2023, the jury returned its verdict. Lori Vallow Daybell was found guilty on all counts. The verdicts included guilty findings on 2 counts of first-degree murder, 1 count for the death of Tylee Ryan, and 1 count for the death of J.J. Vallow, a guilty finding on the conspiracy charge related to the death of Tammy Daybell, and a guilty finding on the grand theft charge. The sentencing hearing took place in July of 2023 in the 7th Judicial District. At that hearing, the court imposed the sentences that are now part of Idaho's permanent judicial record. Lori Vallow Daybell was sentenced to 3 consecutive terms of life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. The consecutive nature of those sentences is significant. Each life term runs independently of the others. There is no provision, no legal mechanism, and no pathway under the sentencing structure imposed by the court through which Lori Vallow Daybell could become eligible for release. The sentences are permanent in every legal and practical sense. Chad Daybell, tried separately before a different jury, was convicted in 2024 on charges related to the deaths of Tylee Ryan, J.J. Vallow, and Tammy Daybell. He was sentenced to death. The conviction and the 3 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole imposed on Lori Vallow Daybell are permanent entries in the public record of Idaho's 7th Judicial District. They are confirmed by NBC News, CNN, ABC News, NPR, East Idaho News, the Associated Press, and the extensive court documentation generated across multiple years of proceedings in Fremont County and Madison County, Idaho. Before we go to Case 2, if you are watching Cold Case Hour for the first time today, welcome to the channel. We cover verified, documented criminal cases drawn directly from court records and confirmed news reporting. If this is the kind of in-depth, research-based content you are looking for, please hit the like button right now and subscribe to Cold Case Hour. Tap the bell notification icon so you never miss a new upload. Now let us continue. Case 2. Robin Lee Rowe. February 10, 1992. Ada County, Idaho. February 10, 1992. Boise, Ada County, Idaho. 4th Judicial District. This date marks the beginning of a criminal case that has been reviewed by the Idaho Supreme Court, referenced by the Death Penalty Information Center, confirmed through multiple rounds of appellate documentation, and reported on by news organizations across 3 decades. It is a case whose outcome has remained unchanged since the sentence was imposed. It is a case that holds a distinction that is unique in the entire documented history of Idaho's criminal justice system. Robin Lee Rowe was a resident of Boise, Ada County, Idaho. She was the mother of 2 children, Joshua Cornelier and Tabitha Cornelier. Her estranged husband was Randy Rowe. On the evening of February 10, 1992, all 3 of them were present in the family's Boise apartment. That night, a fire broke out at the location. Emergency responders were dispatched. By the time the fire was extinguished and investigators were able to access the scene, all 3 occupants of the apartment, Randy Rowe, Joshua Cornelier, and Tabitha Cornelier, were dead. The cause of death for all 3, as established through forensic examination and documented in the subsequent criminal proceedings, was carbon monoxide poisoning. The standard procedure in any fatal residential fire requires a coordinated investigation between fire department personnel and law enforcement to determine origin and cause. That investigation, conducted in the hours and days immediately following the fire on February 10, 1992, produced physical findings that would become the evidentiary foundation of the criminal prosecution that followed. Forensic fire investigators examined the scene in methodical detail. The examination revealed the presence of liquid accelerants within the apartment. The presence of accelerants in a residential fire is one of the most significant forensic indicators available to fire investigators. Accelerants are chemical substances that, when distributed within a structure and ignited, cause fire to spread at a significantly accelerated rate and burn at significantly higher intensity than would be produced by accidental or naturally occurring ignition. Their presence at a fatal fire scene is not consistent with accident. It is consistent with deliberate action. The accelerant finding was the first of two critical physical discoveries documented at the scene. The second finding was the condition of the smoke detectors within the apartment. Investigators documented that the smoke detectors had been disabled prior to the fire. The deliberate disabling of smoke detection equipment in a residential dwelling occupied by individuals who are present at the time of a fire is a forensic indicator that has significant legal weight in arson and homicide investigations. Smoke detectors are the primary early warning system that gives occupants the opportunity to exit a burning structure. Their disabling prior to ignition directly reduces the likelihood that those occupants will be alerted in time to escape. The combination of those two physical findings, confirmed accelerant use and confirmed pre-fire disabling of smoke detection equipment, led investigators to conclude that the fire had been deliberately set. The investigation became a criminal homicide investigation. The inquiry that followed focused on Robin Lee Rowe, a central element of the prosecution's case, as documented in court records and confirmed through the appellate record reviewed by FindLaw and the Death Penalty Information Center, was financial in nature. Investigators established through documentary evidence that Robin Lee Rowe had obtained life insurance policies on all three victims prior to the date of the fire. The existence of those policies, their documentation, and the financial benefit that would flow to Robin Lee Rowe as the named beneficiary following the deaths of the insured individuals formed a significant component of the prosecution's case regarding the question of motive. The physical forensic evidence and the financial documentary evidence were compiled and presented to the Ada County Prosecutor's Office. Robin Lee Rowe was charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder and aggravated arson. The case proceeded to trial in Ada County District Court. The prosecution presented the fire investigation findings, the accelerant evidence, the smoke detector documentation, and the life insurance records to the jury. The defense presented its case. Following deliberations, the jury returned guilty verdicts on all counts. Robin Lee Rowe was convicted of 3 counts of first-degree murder and aggravated arson in Ada County District Court. At the sentencing hearing, the court imposed the sentence of death on the murder convictions. Robin Lee Rowe was remanded to the Idaho Department of Correction. The Rowe case has since moved through multiple rounds of appellate review across 3 decades. The Idaho Supreme Court has examined the case. The conviction and the sentence of death have been the subject of ongoing legal proceedings. As of the most recently available documented record confirmed through the Death Penalty Information Center and Idaho court records, the sentence stands. Robin Lee Rowe remains on Idaho's death row. Her case holds one documented distinction that is unique in Idaho's history. Robin Lee Rowe is the only woman currently on death row in the state of Idaho. In a state that has carried out executions in its documented history, that distinction underscores the severity of the jury's findings and the weight of the physical evidence presented at trial. The conviction and sentence are permanent entries in the public record of Idaho's 4th Judicial District. They are confirmed by Wikipedia's cited sources, FindLaw, the Death Penalty Information Center, and Idaho Reports. We are 2 cases in. If you are finding Cold Case Hours coverage valuable today, please leave a like on this video. It takes 2 seconds, and it makes a real difference to this channel. Share this video with a friend who follows true crime content, and if you have not subscribed yet, do it now so you never miss an episode. On to Case 3. Case 3. Sarah Marie Johnson. September 2nd, 2003. Blaine County, Idaho. September 2nd, 2003. Bellevue, Blaine County, Idaho. 5th Judicial District. The case of Sarah Marie Johnson is one of the most extensively documented cases in the modern history of Idaho's criminal court system. It is a case that was reported on by ABC News, covered in detail by the Idaho State Journal, examined in Idaho Supreme Court records, and has been referenced across multiple legal and journalistic accounts of Idaho's most notable criminal proceedings. It resulted in a sentence of life without the possibility of parole plus 15 additional years, a sentence that remains in effect at the Pocatello Women's Correctional Center. Sarah Marie Johnson was 16 years of age on September 2, 2003, when she was found to have entered the family home in Bellevue, Blaine County, Idaho, and shot both of her parents. Her father, Alan Johnson, and her mother, Diane Johnson, were both found deceased inside the residence. The weapon used in the shootings, as established through the physical evidence collected and documented during the investigation, was a Winchester rifle that had been taken without authorization from a neighbor's property. The investigation was conducted by Blaine County law enforcement. The physical evidence recovered at the scene included forensic ballistic evidence, biological trace evidence, and the recovered firearm. Law enforcement investigators documented the scene in detail. The investigative findings were compiled and presented to the Blaine County Prosecutor's Office, which filed criminal charges against Sarah Marie Johnson. Because Sarah Marie Johnson was 16 years of age at the time of the offense, the question of whether she would be prosecuted as a juvenile or as an adult was among the early legal issues addressed in the proceedings. The determination was made to prosecute her as an adult in Blaine County District Court. The trial of Sarah Marie Johnson took place in Blaine County District Court in 2005. The prosecution presented the physical forensic evidence recovered from the scene, the ballistic findings linking the recovered firearm to the shootings, and the investigative documentation compiled during the inquiry. Witness testimony was presented to the jury. The defense challenged the prosecution's case and presented its own account of the events and the evidence. Following deliberations, the jury returned its verdict. Sarah Marie Johnson was found guilty on 2 counts of first-degree murder, 1 count for the death of Alan Johnson and 1 count for the death of Diane Johnson. The jury's verdict was unanimous. At the sentencing hearing in Blaine County District Court, the court imposed a sentence of life in prison without the possibility of parole, plus an additional 15 years. Sarah Marie Johnson was remanded to the Idaho Department of Correction and subsequently committed to the Pocatello Women's Correctional Center, where she remains incarcerated as of the documented record. The case did not end at sentencing. Sarah Marie Johnson's legal team pursued post-conviction relief proceedings. Those proceedings challenged various aspects of the original trial, including issues related to the conduct of the proceedings and the adequacy of the representation provided. The Idaho Supreme Court reviewed aspects of the case as part of the appellate process. The conviction was upheld. The sentence of life without the possibility of parole plus 15 years remains in effect as confirmed by Idaho Supreme Court records and reporting by ABC News and the Idaho State Journal. It is documented accurately in this program that Sarah Marie Johnson was 16 years of age at the time of the offense and is not a parent. Her case is included in this documentary as one of the most thoroughly documented and legally significant female criminal convictions in Idaho's recorded judicial history. Her presence in the Pocatello Women's Correctional Center, serving a sentence of life without the possibility of parole plus 15 years for the 2003 shootings of her parents in Bellevue, Blaine County, is confirmed by multiple verified sources in the public record. The conviction and sentence are permanent entries in the public record of Idaho's 5th Judicial District. They are confirmed by ABC News, the Idaho State Journal, Wikipedia's cited sources, and Idaho Supreme Court records. Thank you for staying with us through Case 3. Cold Case Hour is built entirely on your support. If you are getting value from today's documentary, hit that like button and leave a comment below. Tell us what you think of the cases we are covering. Subscribe to Cold Case Hour if you have not already done so. Every single subscriber matters. Let us go to Case 4. Case 4. Danielle Radue. May 11th, 2020. Ada County, Idaho. May 11th, 2020. Meridian, Ada County, Idaho. 4th Judicial District. The case of Danielle Radue is documented in the records of Ada County District Court, confirmed by reporting from KTVB Boise, the Idaho Press, the Idaho State Journal, and official communications from the Ada County Prosecutor's Office. It is a case that proceeded from a law enforcement investigation through a formal criminal charging process and concluded with a guilty plea and a sentencing that produced a term of life imprisonment with parole eligibility after a fixed minimum of 18 years. Danielle Radue was a resident of Meridian, Ada County, Idaho. The victim in this case was Dawson McKinney, who was 2 months of age at the time of the documented events. Dawson McKinney was Danielle Radue's infant son. On May 11th, 2020, Dawson McKinney sustained injuries that prompted emergency medical response. He was transported for medical treatment. The medical examination that followed documented the nature and extent of his injuries. Dawson McKinney died as a result of those injuries. The cause of death established through forensic medical examination was blunt force trauma. The forensic findings documented a fractured skull and catastrophic brain injury. The medical determination, communicated to Ada County law enforcement, was that the injuries sustained by Dawson McKinney were non-accidental in nature. That determination prompted the opening of a formal criminal investigation. Ada County law enforcement conducted the investigation. Investigators interviewed Danielle Radue in the course of the inquiry. The investigative record documents that during the course of those interviews, Danielle Radue provided multiple accounts of the events of May 11, 2020, and that those accounts were inconsistent with one another and inconsistent with the physical and forensic evidence gathered during the investigation. The documentation of those inconsistencies formed a significant part of the prosecutorial record that followed. The Ada County Prosecutor's Office filed a charge of first-degree murder against Danielle Radue in connection with the death of Dawson McKinney. The case proceeded through Ada County District Court. Danielle Radue entered a guilty plea through a legal mechanism known as an Alford plea. An Alford plea, named for the United States Supreme Court decision in North Carolina versus Alford, is a form of guilty plea in which the defendant does not explicitly admit to the factual conduct underlying the charge, but acknowledges that the prosecution possesses sufficient evidence to obtain a conviction at trial. The entry of an Alford plea constitutes a guilty plea for all legal and sentencing purposes under Idaho law. The sentencing hearing in the case of Danielle Radue took place in Ada County District Court in July of 2022. At that hearing, the court imposed a sentence of life imprisonment with parole eligibility after a fixed minimum term of 18 years. The sentence was entered into the permanent record of Ada County District Court. Danielle Radue was remanded to the custody of the Idaho Department of Correction to begin serving that sentence. The structure of the sentence imposed by the court means that Danielle Radue will not be eligible to appear before the Idaho Commission of Pardons and Parole for consideration of parole release until she has served a minimum of 18 years of the life sentence. Parole eligibility does not guarantee release. It means only that after the completion of the fixed minimum term, the Parole Commission may consider whether to grant release under conditions specified by that body. The life term remains the outer boundary of the sentence regardless of parole eligibility. The documented record of the Radue case, the investigation, the charge, the Alford plea, and the sentencing is preserved in Ada County District Court records and has been independently confirmed by KTVB Boise, the Idaho Press, the Idaho State Journal, and the Ada County Prosecutor's Office. It is a case that illustrates the operation of Idaho's criminal justice system in responding to the most serious category of harm involving the youngest and most vulnerable members of Idaho's communities. We are now through 4 cases. If you are watching Cold Case Hour today and you have not yet hit the like button, please do that right now. It costs you nothing, and it helps this channel reach more people who are interested in verified, documented true crime content. Subscribe, leave a comment, and let us continue to Case 5. Case 5. Melissa Calumpit. July 12, 2024. Canyon County, Idaho. July 12, 2024. Martin Landing Campground, Parma, Canyon County, Idaho. 3rd Judicial District. The case of Melissa Calumpit is among the most recently prosecuted cases in this documentary record. The investigation, the charging, the guilty plea, and the sentencing all took place within a compressed period relative to many of the other cases in this program. It is a case confirmed by reporting from KTVB Boise, the Idaho Press, East Idaho News, and Kiwi TV, and by official documentation from the Canyon County Prosecutor's Office. It resulted in a sentence of life imprisonment with a fixed minimum term of 27 years before parole eligibility, one of the longest fixed minimum terms recorded in Canyon County's modern sentencing history. Melissa Calumpit was a resident of Nevada at the time of the events documented in the Canyon County criminal record. Her estranged husband was Travis Calumpit. On July 12, 2024, at the Martin Landing Campground in Parma, Canyon County, Idaho, Travis Calumpit was shot at close range. He died at the scene. The physical and forensic evidence gathered by Canyon County law enforcement at the campground, combined with the investigative record compiled in the hours and days following the shooting, established the basis for the criminal charges that followed. Canyon County law enforcement conducted the investigation into the death of Travis Calumpit. The investigative record documented the circumstances of the shooting, the physical evidence recovered at the campground scene, the forensic findings associated with the examination of the evidence, and the account of events established through the totality of the investigative work. The findings were presented to the Canyon County Prosecutor's Office. Melissa Calumpit was charged with first-degree murder in connection with the death of Travis Calumpit. As the investigation and prosecution proceeded, an additional dimension of the case emerged. The investigation established that a co-conspirator had been involved in the planning and execution of the offense. That co-conspirator was identified as Rosalie Morris, the mother of Melissa Calumpit. The Canyon County Prosecutor's Office filed separate charges against Rosalie Morris as a co-conspirator in connection with the death of Travis Calumpit. Melissa Calumpit entered a guilty plea to the charge of first-degree murder. The sentencing hearing in Canyon County District Court took place in November of 2025. At that hearing, the 3rd Judicial District Court imposed a sentence of life imprisonment with a fixed minimum term of 27 years before any parole eligibility could attach. The fixed minimum term of 27 years is among the most substantial fixed minimum periods recorded in a Canyon County sentencing proceeding in the documented modern record of that court. Rosalie Morris, charged and prosecuted separately as a co-conspirator, was sentenced in related proceedings to a term of 30 years in connection with her role in the offense. The Calumpit case is notable in the documentary record for several reasons. The involvement of a family member as a documented co-conspirator adds a dimension to the prosecutorial record that distinguishes this case from many of the others in this program. The travel from Nevada to an Idaho campground, as established in the investigative and prosecutorial documentation, reflects the geographic scope of the planning documented in the case record. And the fixed minimum term of 27 years imposed by the Canyon County District Court reflects the severity with which the court assessed the conduct established through the guilty plea proceedings. The conviction and sentence are permanent entries in the public record of Idaho's 3rd Judicial District. They are confirmed by KTVB Boise, the Idaho Press, East Idaho News, Kiwi TV, and the Canyon County Prosecutor's Office. 5 cases down, 5 to go. Thank you for watching Cold Case Hour. If you are enjoying today's documentary, the best thing you can do right now is hit the subscribe button if you have not already done so, leave a like on this video, and share it with someone in your life who follows true crime content. Your support keeps this channel running. Let us continue to Case 6. Case 6. Katherine Stanfield. December 11th, 2009. Ada County, Idaho. December 11th, 2009. Boise area, Ada County, Idaho. 4th Judicial District. The case of Katherine Stanfield is one of the most extensively litigated cases in Ada County's documented criminal history. From the initial investigation in 2009 through the trial in 2012, through the Idaho Supreme Court's review in 2015, and through the granting of a new evidentiary hearing in 2019, the Stanfield case has moved through more layers of Idaho's judicial system than almost any other case in this documentary record. It is a case confirmed by the Idaho Press, KTVB Boise, and Idaho Supreme Court documentation under the case citation Stanfield v. State, and reviewed in legal databases including FindLaw and Justia. Katherine Stanfield operated a home daycare in the Boise area of Ada County, Idaho. In that capacity, she was a licensed child care provider responsible for the care and supervision of children entrusted to her by their families. One of those children was Wyatt Fessler, who was 2 years of age at the time of the events documented in the Ada County criminal record. On December 11, 2009, Wyatt Fessler suffered injuries while in Katherine Stanfield's care at the home daycare location. Emergency medical response was called. Wyatt Fessler was transported for medical treatment. The medical examination documented the nature and severity of his injuries. Wyatt Fessler died as a result of those injuries. The medical determination regarding the cause and nature of Wyatt Fessler's injuries was communicated to Ada County law enforcement. The determination, as documented in the subsequent criminal proceedings and confirmed through the appellate record, was that the injuries sustained by Wyatt Fessler were the result of non-accidental head trauma. That finding is a medically and legally significant determination. Non-accidental head trauma in a child in the care of a specific individual is a finding that, in combination with the circumstances documented at the scene and through the investigative inquiry, forms the foundation of a criminal homicide charge. Ada County law enforcement conducted the investigation into the death of Wyatt Fessler. The investigative findings were compiled and presented to the Ada County Prosecutor's Office. Katherine Stanfield was charged with first-degree murder in connection with the death of Wyatt Fessler. The case proceeded to trial in Ada County District Court. The proceedings included the presentation of medical expert testimony regarding the nature of the injuries and the determination that they were non-accidental. The defense challenged the prosecution's medical evidence and presented its own expert testimony. The competing medical expert testimony regarding the mechanism and cause of the injuries documented in Wyatt Fessler's case formed a central contested element of the trial proceedings. In June of 2012, the jury returned its verdict. Katherine Stanfield was found guilty of first-degree murder in connection with the death of Wyatt Fessler. At the sentencing hearing, the Ada County District Court imposed a sentence of life imprisonment with a mandatory minimum term of 10 years. Katherine Stanfield was remanded to the Idaho Department of Correction. The conviction was subsequently challenged through the appellate process. Katherine Stanfield's legal team pursued review by the Idaho Supreme Court. In 2015, the Idaho Supreme Court issued its opinion in Stanfield v. State, upholding the conviction. The court's review of the case examined the legal and evidentiary issues raised on appeal and affirmed the finding of the trial court. The conviction and sentence were confirmed. The legal proceedings in the Stanfield case did not end with the 2015 Idaho Supreme Court opinion. In 2019, a new development occurred in the post-conviction proceedings. A new evidentiary hearing was granted on the grounds of ineffective assistance of counsel, a legal claim that the representation provided to Katherine Stanfield during the original trial proceedings did not meet the constitutional standard required by Idaho and federal law. The granting of an evidentiary hearing on this basis is a procedural step that allows a court to examine specific claims about the adequacy of representation. It does not constitute a finding that the original conviction was in error. The conviction of Katherine Stanfield for the first-degree murder of Wyatt Fessler stands as of the documented public record. The legal proceedings that have continued since the original conviction reflect the operation of Idaho's post-conviction review system and the right of defendants to challenge specific aspects of their proceedings through established legal mechanisms. The case is documented in Ada County District Court records, the Idaho Supreme Court opinion in Stanfield v. State, and the public records of the Idaho Department of Correction. It has been confirmed by the Idaho Press, KTVB Boise, FindLaw, and Justia. Thank you for watching Cold Case Hour through Case 6. We are over halfway through today's documentary. Please take a moment right now to hit the like button on this video, leave a comment below, and subscribe to this channel if you have not already done so. Your engagement tells us to keep producing this kind of in-depth, verified content. On to Case 7. Case 7. Monique Osuna. Spring through September 2, 2020. Ada County, Idaho. Spring through September 2, 2020. Meridian, Ada County, Idaho. 4th Judicial District. The case of Monique Osuna is one of the most extensively documented and most thoroughly verified cases in this program. It is a case confirmed by KTVB Boise, the Idaho Press, KVTV, the Ada County Prosecutor's Office through official press release, Law and Crime, the Seattle Times, and the Associated Press. It is a case in which a guilty plea was entered and in which the sentencing judge placed specific language on the record at the hearing. And it is a case that resulted in a sentence of life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, the most severe non-capital sentence available under Idaho law. Monique Osuna was a resident of Meridian, Ada County, Idaho. She was the stepmother of Emric Osuna, who was 9 years of age at the time the events documented in the Ada County criminal record began. Emric Osuna resided in the household under the care and responsibility of Monique Osuna. The criminal conduct documented in the Ada County prosecutorial record did not occur on a single date. It occurred over an extended period spanning from the spring of 2020 through September 2, 2020. During that period, the investigative and prosecutorial record documents a sustained pattern of conduct directed toward Emric Osuna. The documentation of that conduct was made possible in significant part by nanny cameras that had been installed within the residence. Those cameras recorded events within the home over the course of the period in question. The recordings captured on those devices were recovered by law enforcement investigators and formed a central component of the evidentiary record in the case. According to the documented prosecutorial record confirmed by the Ada County Prosecutor's Office and reported by KTVB Boise, the Idaho Press, and the Associated Press, the recorded evidence documented Emmerich Osuna being subjected to a sustained course of conduct that included being forced to perform physical exercise for extended periods measured in hours, being subjected to physical disciplinary measures using objects including a frying pan, a belt, and a dog leash, being denied adequate food, being required to consume food from waste containers, and being confined to a closet for sleeping. At the time of his death on September 2, 2020, forensic examination documented that Emmerich Osuna weighed 44 pounds, a figure that is significantly below the medically expected weight for a 9-year-old child, and that was documented in the medical record as consistent with the conditions described in the prosecutorial account. Emmerich Osuna died on September 2, 2020. Law enforcement was notified. The investigation that followed was conducted by Ada County law enforcement with coordination from the Ada County Prosecutor's Office. The video recordings recovered from the nanny cameras installed in the residence provided investigators with a documented visual record of the events that had taken place within the home over the preceding months. That evidence, combined with the forensic medical findings associated with the examination of Emmerich Osuna and the physical and documentary evidence compiled during the investigation, formed the basis of the criminal charge filed against Monique Osuna. Monique Osuna was charged with first-degree murder in connection with the death of Emmerich Osuna. The case proceeded through Ada County District Court. In February of 2022, Monique Osuna entered a guilty plea to the charge of first-degree murder. The plea was entered in Ada County District Court and acknowledged the sufficiency of the evidence compiled by the prosecution. The sentencing hearing took place in Ada County District Court in June of 2022. At that hearing, in addition to the imposition of sentence, the presiding judge placed specific language on the record characterizing the conduct established through the guilty plea proceedings. The judge's characterization of the conduct, as documented in the court record and reported by multiple verified news organizations, used the words sadistic, evil, and heartless in describing what the evidence had established. The placement of that language on the record by the sentencing judge reflects the weight of the documented findings and the assessment of the court as to the nature of the conduct to which the guilty plea had been entered. The sentence imposed by Ada County District Court at the June 2022 hearing was life in prison without the possibility of parole. Monique Osuna was remanded to the custody of the Idaho Department of Correction to serve that sentence. There is no provision under the sentence imposed by the court through which Monique Osuna could become eligible for parole consideration at any future point. The sentence is permanent. The documented record of the Osuna case, the investigation, the charge, the guilty plea, the sentencing, and the specific judicial language placed on the record is preserved in Ada County District Court records and has been independently confirmed by KTVB Boise, the Idaho Press, KVTV, the Ada County Prosecutor's Office official press release, Law and Crime, the Seattle Times, and the Associated Press. Case 7 is now in the record. We have 3 cases remaining. If you have been watching Cold Case Hour throughout today's documentary, thank you. Your time and your attention mean everything to this channel. Please remember to like this video, leave a comment below telling us what you think, and subscribe to Cold Case Hour so you do not miss a single upload. Let us go to Case 8. Case 8. Angel Newberry. October 12th through 13th, 2024. Bingham County, Idaho. October 12th through 13th, 2024. Blackfoot, Bingham County, Idaho. 6th Judicial District. The case of Angel Newberry occupies a distinct position within this documentary record. It is a case that was reported on by UPI and East Idaho News. It is a case that was investigated by Bingham County law enforcement and that moved through the criminal charging process in Bingham County's courts. And it is a case that, when examined in full against the context of this documentary's other 9 entries, presents a different kind of legal outcome, one that reflects the operation of Idaho's prosecutorial system in a case where the full weight of the evidence and the specific circumstances led the court to a resolution different from the life sentences documented elsewhere in this program. Angel Newberry was a resident of Blackfoot, Bingham County, Idaho. On the night of October 12 through October 13, 2024, Angel Newberry gave birth alone, without medical assistance, and without the presence of any other person. The delivery took place outside of a hospital or medical setting. Following the delivery, the newborn was found to have died. In the immediate period following the birth, Angel Newberry did not contact law enforcement or emergency medical services to report what had occurred. Instead, she transported the deceased newborn to Grove Creek Medical Center in Blackfoot, where a safe haven baby box was located. Safe haven baby box locations are designated drop-off points established under Idaho's safe haven law, a statutory provision designed to allow individuals to surrender newborns without criminal prosecution in specific defined circumstances. Angel Newberry placed the deceased newborn in the safe haven baby box at Grove Creek Medical Center without reporting the circumstances of the birth or the death to medical personnel or law enforcement. The discovery of the deceased newborn prompted notification to Bingham County law enforcement. An investigation was opened. Investigators worked to identify the individual who had placed the newborn in the safe haven baby box. Through the investigative process, Angel Newberry was identified. She was located and interviewed. The original charge filed against her was failure to report a death, a charge connected to her failure to notify authorities of the circumstances surrounding the newborn's death. As the case proceeded through Bingham County's judicial system, the charge was resolved through a plea to a reduced misdemeanor offense. The final disposition of the case resulted in a misdemeanor conviction rather than a felony conviction and did not produce a sentence of imprisonment of the kind documented in the other cases in this program. The Newberry case is documented here because it is a case that entered the criminal justice system, was investigated by law enforcement, produced criminal charges, and resulted in a formal judicial disposition. Its inclusion reflects the commitment of this documentary to presenting the full documented record of cases involving women in Idaho who came before the courts in connection with circumstances involving the death of an infant or child. The outcome in this case, a misdemeanor resolution, is presented accurately and without distortion as a matter of factual record. The case stands as a documented reminder that Idaho's prosecutorial system exercises judgment in the application of charges and in the resolution of cases based on the totality of the evidence and the specific facts presented by each individual matter. The documented record of the Newberry case is preserved in Bingham County court records and has been confirmed by UPI and East Idaho News. Thank you for staying with us through Case 8. We have 2 cases remaining in today's documentary. If you have been watching since the beginning, you have now heard 8 thoroughly documented, verified cases from Idaho's criminal court record. Please take a moment right now to hit the like button, leave a comment below, and make sure you are subscribed to Cold Case Hour. 2 more cases to go. Let us continue. Case 9, Josina Regan. October 22, 2020. Ada County, Idaho. October 22, 2020. Boise, Ada County, Idaho. 4th Judicial District. The case of Josina Regan is documented in the official press releases of the Ada County Prosecutor's Office, confirmed by KTVB Boise, the Idaho Press, and Idaho News. It is a case that moved through an 8-day jury trial in Ada County District Court, produced guilty verdicts on 9 of 10 counts, and resulted in a sentence of life imprisonment with a fixed minimum of 30 years before parole eligibility could attach. It is a case confirmed at every level by the public record of Ada County's judicial system. Josina Regan was 46 years of age and a resident of Boise, Ada County, Idaho at the time of the events documented in the criminal record. The victim was John K. Baker, 52 years of age, also a Boise resident. On the morning of October 22, 2020, Boise Police Department officers were dispatched to a home on North Ancestor Avenue in Boise in response to a reported medical emergency. Officers arrived at the location in the early morning hours and found John K. Baker at the scene with gunshot wounds. He was pronounced dead. The investigation that followed was assigned to Boise Police Department detectives working in coordination with the Ada County Prosecutor's Office. The initial account provided by Josina Regan to responding officers, as documented in the investigative and prosecutorial record, was that she had discovered the victim already injured when she arrived at the residence, and that she had no involvement in the events that led to his death. That account was inconsistent with the evidence gathered by Boise police detectives during the investigation. As the inquiry developed, Josina Regan subsequently provided a different account, in which she acknowledged that she had shot John K. Baker 3 times in the chest. The investigative record documented additional conduct that occurred in the period between the shooting and the eventual call to emergency services. According to the Ada County Prosecutor's Office press release and confirmed reporting by KTVB Boise, Josina Regan used the intervening time to edit data on her cellular telephone, an act documented as the preparation of false evidence, and to remove narcotics and money from Baker's residence. The call to 911 was not placed until hours after the shooting. The full scope of the conduct documented in the investigative record, the shooting, the delay in reporting, the evidence tampering, and the theft from the victim's residence, formed the basis of the multi-count criminal charging document filed by the Ada County Prosecutor's Office. Josina Regan was charged with 10 counts including first-degree murder, preparing false evidence, possession of a controlled substance, conspiracy to possess a controlled substance, grand theft, conspiracy to commit grand theft, intimidating a witness, and related misdemeanor charges. The case proceeded to trial in Ada County District Court before the Honorable Judge Nancy Baskin. The trial lasted 8 days. The prosecution presented the physical evidence gathered at the scene, the forensic findings, the cellular telephone data, the testimony of Boise police detectives, and the documentary record of the investigation. The defense presented its case. Following deliberations, the jury returned its verdict. Josina Regan was convicted on 9 of the 10 counts filed against her. The jury returned guilty verdicts on first-degree murder, preparing false evidence, possession of a controlled substance, conspiracy to possess a controlled substance, grand theft, conspiracy to commit grand theft, and 3 related misdemeanor charges. She was acquitted on the single count of intimidating a witness. The sentencing hearing took place in Ada County District Court in July of 2022 before Judge Nancy Baskin. At that hearing, the court followed the prosecution's sentencing recommendation and imposed a sentence of life imprisonment with a fixed minimum term of 30 years before any parole eligibility could attach. Judge Baskin placed specific language on the record at the sentencing hearing. According to the Idaho Press, the judge stated that drug activity is a dirty business and that the sentence was clearly meant to deter others from involvement in drug activity and from taking matters into their own hands. Ada County Prosecutor Jan Bennett, whose office led the prosecution, extended condolences to Baker's family and thanked the Boise police detectives for what she described as thorough work on a complex investigation. Josina Regan was remanded to the custody of the Idaho Department of Correction to begin serving the life sentence with 30 years fixed. The fixed minimum term means she will not appear before the Idaho Commission of Pardons and Parole for any parole consideration until she has served a minimum of 30 years. The life sentence remains the outer boundary of her commitment regardless of any future parole proceedings. The conviction and sentence of Josina Regan are permanent entries in the public record of Idaho's 4th Judicial District. They are confirmed by the Ada County Prosecutor's Office official press release, KTVB Boise, the Idaho Press, and Idaho News. The case is fully verified at every level of the public record. Case 9 is now in the record with fully verified, accurate information. Thank you for watching Cold Case Hour. Please hit the like button, leave a comment, and subscribe to this channel so you never miss a documented, research-based episode. One final case remaining. Let us finish. Case 10. Judy Gough. 1980. Ada County, Idaho. 1980. Boise area, Ada County, Idaho. 4th Judicial District. We close this documentary with a case that begins in a year when some of the other defendants featured in this program had not yet been born. A case that unfolded not through a rapid investigation and swift prosecution, but through a span of time so extraordinary that it strains the ordinary assumptions of how a criminal case comes to be charged and prosecuted. A case in which the gap between the commission of the offense and the opening of the criminal investigation was not weeks or months, or even a few years. It was 27 years. The case of Judy Gough is documented in Ada County District Court records and has been confirmed by KTVB Boise and the Associated Press. It is a case that illustrates, perhaps more clearly than any other in this documentary, a principle that runs through the entire body of Idaho's criminal justice record. The principle that accountability, though it may be delayed, is not extinguished by the passage of time alone. Judy Gough was a resident of the Boise area, Ada County, Idaho. Her husband was Lloyd Ford. At the time of the events that would later form the basis of criminal charges against her, the household included at least one child, a daughter who was approximately 12 years of age. That child was present in the home on the night in question and would carry the knowledge of what she witnessed for the next 27 years before making the decision that would eventually bring the case before a court of law. According to the court record and the prosecutorial documentation confirmed by KTVB Boise and the Associated Press, in the year 1980, Lloyd Ford was shot and killed. The weapon used, as established in the prosecutorial record, was a deer rifle. The court record further documents that prior to the shooting, Lloyd Ford had been drugged. Following his death, Lloyd Ford's body was not reported to authorities. No emergency services were called. No death was reported through any legal channel. Instead, according to the documented court record, Lloyd Ford's remains were buried in the backyard of the family's Boise area property. For 27 years, Lloyd Ford did not appear in the records of Idaho's criminal justice system as a victim. He did not appear in any documented homicide investigation. The case did not exist within any law enforcement record because no report had ever been made and no investigation had ever been opened. Whatever inquiries may have been made about Lloyd Ford's whereabouts in the years following his death, none of them produced the discovery that would eventually come not from investigators, but from within the family itself. In 2007, Judy Gough's daughter came forward. She was an adult by then, a woman who had been carrying the knowledge of what she had witnessed as a 12-year-old child for the better part of 3 decades. The decision to come forward and speak to law enforcement was hers alone. No external pressure, no new forensic technology, and no investigative breakthrough had forced the issue. She made a choice. She gave a statement to investigators in which she described what she had seen inside that household in 1980. Her statement gave Ada County law enforcement the foundation they needed to open a formal criminal investigation. Acting on the information she provided, investigators examined the property referenced in her account. They found what her statement said they would find. Human remains were recovered from the property. Forensic examination was conducted. The remains were identified as those of Lloyd Ford. The investigation that followed brought the accumulated documentation, the physical recovery of the remains, the forensic identification findings, the eyewitness account of Gough's daughter, and the additional evidence compiled by Ada County investigators during the inquiry to the Ada County Prosecutor's Office. The decision was made to proceed with criminal charges. Judy Gough was arrested in September of 2007. She was transported to Ada County and charged in connection with the death of Lloyd Ford. At the time of her arrest, she was facing accountability for an offense that had occurred before many of the law enforcement personnel involved in the 2007 investigation had entered their professional careers. The case proceeded through Ada County District Court. The unique nature of the evidentiary challenge presented by a 27-year-old offense, physical evidence subjected to nearly 3 decades of environmental exposure, witness memories tested by the passage of time, the absence of a contemporaneous forensic record, was addressed through the plea negotiation process that followed. In 2008, Judy Gough entered a guilty plea in Ada County District Court to a reduced charge of second-degree murder. The reduction from a potential first-degree charge to second-degree was the product of the negotiated resolution and reflected the prosecutorial assessment of the evidentiary realities of proceeding to trial on a case of this age. At the sentencing hearing in Ada County District Court in 2008, the court imposed a term of imprisonment with a mandatory minimum of 10 years. Judy Gough was remanded to the custody of the Idaho Department of Correction to serve that sentence. The Gough case is significant in the documented record for reasons that extend beyond the facts of the offense itself. It is significant because of what it demonstrates about the reach and the persistence of Idaho's criminal justice system. A case from 1980, brought to court in 2008 through the decision of a witness to come forward nearly 3 decades after the events in question. A conviction entered. A sentence imposed. A case resolved. The criminal justice record does not recognize a statute of limitations for first-degree or second-degree murder in Idaho. There is no expiration date on accountability for the most serious offenses under Idaho law. The Gough case is the most vivid illustration in this documentary of that principle. It stands as the final case in this documentary's chronological record, the earliest offense date, the last to be documented here, and as a reminder that the cases we have covered today, from 1980 all the way through 2025, share one quality that defines them all. The record is permanent. The documented record of the Gough case is preserved in Ada County District Court records and has been independently confirmed by KTVB Boise and the Associated Press. 10 cases. For decades. One state. From Judy Gough in Ada County in 1980 to Melissa Calumpit in Canyon County in 2024, the cases documented in today's program span the full range of Idaho's criminal justice system in operation. They involve district courts from the 3rd Judicial District to the 7th Judicial District. They involve sentences ranging from a fixed minimum term of 10 years to 3 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole, and in the case of Robin Lee Rowe, a sentence of death. They involve investigations conducted by agencies across multiple Idaho counties, prosecutions brought by multiple county prosecutors' offices, and appellate review by the Idaho Court of Appeals and the Idaho Supreme Court. What every single one of these cases has in common is this. They were investigated. They were charged. They were prosecuted. They were decided. And the verdicts and sentences that resulted from those proceedings are now part of the permanent public record of the state of Idaho. The criminal justice system does not move quickly in most instances. The Gough case demonstrated that it sometimes takes decades for accountability to arrive. The Vallow-Daybell case demonstrated that even cases of extraordinary national complexity eventually reach a verdict. The Rowe case demonstrated that sentences imposed in the 1990s remain in effect 30 years later. Every case in this documentary demonstrated that Idaho's courts, when presented with sufficient evidence and a properly conducted prosecution, are capable of producing outcomes that reflect the most serious measures available under the state's criminal code. This has been Cold Case Hour. Today's documentary covered 10 of the most thoroughly documented and legally significant criminal cases involving women in Idaho's modern judicial history. Every case, every name, every charge, every verdict, and every sentence documented in this program is drawn from verified, publicly accessible sources and is part of the permanent legal record of the state of Idaho. If you watched today's full documentary, thank you. That means everything to this channel. Please hit the like button right now if you have not already done so. Leave a comment below. Tell us which case you found most significant, which outcome surprised you most, or which aspect of Idaho's criminal justice system you would like us to explore further in a future episode. And if you are not yet a subscriber to Cold Case Hour, please subscribe right now and tap the bell notification icon so that every new upload comes directly to you. Cold Case Hour is built on one commitment. Every case we cover is verified. Every fact we present is drawn from the public record. Every source we use is documented and accessible. We do not speculate. We do not dramatize. We follow the record where it leads, and we present it to you exactly as the courts found it. This has been Cold Case Hour. We will see you in the next documentary. Subscribe to Cold Case Hour. Like this video. Leave a comment. Share with a fellow true crime viewer. And we will see you next time.